From the Wazilla Media Studios in sunny San Diego, California, the Big Biz Show is on the air. Great to see you today. CBS Radio, Business Talk Radio, Armed Forces Radio Network in 175 countries and all the ships at sea. God bless the military men and women serving our country overseas and underway. Thanks for watching. Got a lot of interesting email this last week about, a lot of our Armed Forces Radio listeners facing retirement at the age of 45 years old.
Yeah.
Now, what are they going to do with the next part of their life? Which is why it's interesting to talk about what we're going to talk about next. Richard Steele, our emerging markets expert here on the Big Biz Show, also spokesperson for Africa is the New China.com. How's up, buddy? Good to have you back in town. Listen, I know when you leave here, you get in a plane and you fly elsewhere, and every time I see you, you just got off a plane and you ran in here. So I want your life. That sounds fantastic.
No, you don't want my life.
Hey, I want to. Richard texted me this morning on his drive down from Los Angeles a graphic of Africa. Of course, and we're going to tell this whole story again here. And of course, you see the commercials on the program and throughout the day here on the Biz Television Network. You hear them on CBS and Business Talk Radio for Africa is the New China.com. But I want to show you this graphic that Richard sent me. Richard,
all the different states.
Take a look at that.
Those must be the different states there in
For our
Africa.
radio audience, what you're seeing is an outline of Africa. But within that outline, they've placed what, Richard?
I mean, you can see virtually, some of the largest countries in the world. I mean, India, China,
the
United
US.
States.
They've got what they've done is they've placed strategically inside this. They did a graphic representation of just how big this country is. And I guess the reason I want to point that out is I don't think, as you said when you walked in, nobody realizes.
Until people literally look at things and begin doing research, they just don't understand how big Africa is.
Well, that's the reason why I want to talk about Africa is the New China.com, because China, of course, was the emerging market.
Sure.
3 years ago, 2
Correct.
years ago. Everything all we ever talked about. In fact, you remember, Russ, people coming on the air and talking about Africa or talking about China. And it was all there was as far as emerging markets.
Taking all the rebar.
Some people talked a little bit about India. Some people talked about Brazil, but it was all China. Sure. And then, of course, the shoe dropped on that in a number of reasons. But nonetheless, a lot of people made a lot of money on that because they were there at the right time.
Absolutely.
Africa is kind of where China was before China even was on the map, right?
Yeah, and like I said, the internet helps the most. It helps people get research. It helps people get information.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't. If China was being discovered today and all the information was readily available, it would have been a much faster curve, and people would have been able to participate.
By the way, the number is 800-998-AFRICA, 800-998-2374. And the reason I want you to call that is I want you to pick up a copy of this report, Impact Investing in West Africa. One of the first pages that I see, and it's one of these things that Richard told you, it's like a workbook. You mark it up, you can look at it. You can gather the data and take a look. But interestingly enough, Nigeria has a GDP of $206 billion. I don't think anybody would even realize that.
No. And, if you see the numbers that Exxon reported this morning, I mean, you can see the numbers that everybody was talking about. Exxon's one of the things that they attributed it to was profitability in West Africa.
Let me ask you this. Why was Africa off the map for so long? Because they were a thriving GDP. I mean, they had some political problems in certain parts of Africa, but still, they're a money-making continent.
Yeah, it's all resource driven. Everything happens in cycles. I don't care if it's technology. I don't care if it's, you always see transactions. You see shifts around the world. I mean, think about it. I mean, in the 1980s, everybody was scared that Japan was going to own the United States and they were taking everything over.
Right. Golf course at a time.
Yeah,
they
were buying them all.
Oh, that's a great analogy. Remember, because when Japan started buying real estate in Hawaii, it was
oh no.
Yeah, you're right, and it did come in cycles. It's got a $1.6 trillion GDP. Is that a correct number for the entire continent? So Africa, one of the most rapidly growing continents in the world. Now let's talk about the three resources. It's a commodity play.
Sure.
I'm going to say, and I told Russ earlier, and you correct me if I'm wrong, oil, gold, and diamonds.
Those are the three best.
Fourth is surfing. Weirdest thing right here. Some great spots to surf in Africa.
In South Africa?
Yeah, look at it.
Liberia, Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
Talk to us. What's it going to take? What is it going to take for, I guess, the impact to hit investors in the U.S. and globally to take Africa seriously? Because I think they're starting to now, but I think we're still pre-peak, which is a good place to be as an investor.
Sure, it takes performance. It's like I made a comment. I was in New York this week. a number of people, participated in that. One of the companies that we're helping assist, that company Araco, they raised a couple $1 million, and people are starting to look at these from a stock standpoint, from an investment standpoint, and they're looking at them early, and they're saying to themselves, wow, these companies are beginning to perform early, just like the Chinese transactions did. But again, people that have to do their research have to take their time and have to educate themselves.
ORAC, by the way, is the company Araco, something that we're following here on the Big Biz Show. But I can also tell you, you talk about research. Tell us about this report that folks can get if they go to AfricaIsTheNewChina.com, or they simply call 1-800-998-AFRICA. You see the commercials here. But it's impact investing in West Africa here, and it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
But it's all right here in one place.
Well, and here's the great part about it is, you can pick up the phone, call the 800 number, and get a physical copy of the report. Talk to Danny, talk to John, and if people have questions, they can pick up the phone and call them and say, by the way, I'm reading page 11. What does this mean to you, or what do we think it is? But again, like I told you weeks ago, that research report literally helped me and my clients, for years in China when I first got the one that was all about China and what was going to happen there.
We talked about this being a resource play, Africa, and well, as long as we're talking, if you're listening to us online, it's simple. I've got the link up on Twitter. I'll do that again to our 20-some thousand Twitter followers. AfricaIsTheNewChina.com. But remember the big class shift, the wealth shift that happened in China?
Sure.
It was the single largest class shift in the history of the world. Is that going to happen in West Africa? I mean, because I don't know the population well enough. Is there the very, very rich and the very, very poor like it was in China? Or is it?
It's very similar to China's structure. And remember, China was not just about building manufacturing places. The credo of the central government was, how do we put 1 billion people to work?
Right.
And they want to create a middle class. I mean, for the first time, people in China are going to buy cell phones, and they're going to have a middle class in China. You're beginning to see the same thing in West Africa. They want the locals to then work for these multinational companies, not just come in there and have their resources taken.
Well, and the other issue is you have to ask the government seems to be participating finally. I mean, you hear the news, and it's good news coming out of Africa now. The government's backing business, probably more than the U.S.'s government's backing business.
And you can see, I mean, if you do any research on the internet, you'll see how many officials from Washington, D.C. are in West Africa, whether it's Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ghana, Botswana. And conversely, you have a lot of officials coming here. So you're beginning to see the corporate, the seeds beginning to sprout in a country that's been overlooked for 200 years.
There's something that we don't talk about a lot, and I want to save a couple of these for the next break because I'm going to keep you here. But we are going to talk about how you invest in West Africa, because I think that's important. People start hearing this, they start licking their chops, and they want to do some research. They can also easily go to the website AfricaIsTheNewChina.com. They can call the guys over 800-998-AFRICA. 800-998-2374, and they can pick up a copy of this report, Impact Investing in West Africa. But one of the things is once they do the research, how do you invest? I want to spend some time on that.
Sure.
I also want to spend some time on the resource play there. How much is oil? How much is diamond? How much is gold? But I guess the first question is, you find the public companies there to invest in, just like anything else? Is that the way to do it?
A lot of the public companies that have exposure in West Africa, people already know. I mean, they know Exxon. They know Harry Winston. They know Tiffany's. They know
Taco Bell.
Yeah.
No, there's no Taco Bell. I just wondered. What's going in, what's not. See, I'm doing my research right now here.
Exactly.
But you're right, and of course you think of West Africa, you think of Africa as a whole. Everybody always thought of oil because of Nigeria, but now now diamonds started popping up the last couple years.
And listen, no question about it. I mean, Nigeria, they've got the greatest oil in the world. I mean, you could literally take it out of the ground and pour it right in kind
honey crude, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it looks like honey.
Let's take a quick. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about specifically how you invest in West Africa and kind of the resource play that we're talking. Here's the report. AfricaIsTheNewChina.com. Impact Investing in West Africa. You can give them a call there, 800-998-AFRICA. 800-998-2374. Sully here, Rusty Nails, and Richard Steele. Big Biz Show, BigBizShow.com.
Investors who have focused on gold have done well in the past few years, but to where are smart investors turning their focus now? Diamonds. The value of diamonds is steadily growing. In fact, they've averaged a 15% increase per year since 1949. Don't waste time and money investing in individual stones or coins. Buying is easy, selling is not. Look for many opportunities in West Africa where you can invest literally at the ground level. Mining and exploration companies are opening their doors for you to invest in their current holdings and activities. Gold, diamonds, and precious minerals have never been as lucrative as they are today. Call now for free information and a complete research report on what's happening in West Africa. Call 1-800-998-AFRICA. Call 1-800-998-AFRICA. Get the research you need today to invest for tomorrow.
From the Wazilla Media Studios in sunny San Diego, California, on the CBS Radio Network, Business Talk Radio Network, Armed Forces Radio, and Biz Television. Big Biz Show's on the air. Great to have you along today. I'm Sully, your host. Russ T. Nails in studio today.
Hello, everyone.
AfricaIsTheNewChina.com. That's the website. Of course, Impact Investing in West Africa is the name of the report that you can get by going to AfricaIsTheNewChina.com and calling the number 800-998-AFRICA, 800-998-2374.
And it's closer,
What's closer?
Africa, than China.
So you got that going for you.
Yeah, in case you got to fly over, pick up a check, fly back.
Richard Steele is our emerging markets expert.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting when people think about Africa, and specifically West Africa, they don't think about this contiguous group of countries that are within Africa. In other words, it's there's like a heterogeneous, I think you call it in your report, this group of countries, and as a whole, they create $1.7 trillion or something like that in GDP. Yeah. It rivals Brazil and Russia. Mm-hmm. Now, when you say things like that, it makes you think, well, gosh, I got to figure out a way to get involved in it. And I know we touched on this right before we took a break, but I would say if people, and I've had emails coming in the last couple of weeks, how do we invest? Well, you invest by finding public companies that are involved there, correct?
Sure. That's exactly right.
Is that simple as that, correct?
Simple as that.
Oraco, I beg your pardon, Oraco, O-R-A-C is one way. Interesting company. The other thing I want to talk about is the resource thing. What percentage is? I mean, there's been a shift here in the U.S. where all of a sudden western North Dakota is now ahead of Alaska in terms of resources and oil specifically. Do those type of things happen there? I mean, in other words, are diamonds going to be the next thing that dwarfs oil there? Or will gold be that? Or what's it?
No, there's so much oil there. Diamonds and gold are not going to dwarf the oil production.
Not a half.
I mean, no. You would if you saw that kind of diamond production, the diamond market would collapse. I mean, there's just so much honey crude down there. I don't think you're going to see that.
But on the other side of the fence, diamond miners in West Africa can't keep pace with demand right now.
No. I mean, and you can look at big macro things. You look at the data. In 1998, 1% of the Chinese got married with a diamond. Last year, 31% got married with a diamond. So there's inherent trends that you see throughout the world. I mean, listen, we all have girlfriends or wives, and listen,
rub it in. Fine.
They want.
Some have both.
They want sparkly things that glitter and glow, and so you're going to see demand for diamonds. That's not going to go anywhere.
So is that so? If you were to pick a play resource wise, or do you not, or do you just pick the whole area? Is that? I mean, what's the strategy?
For me, I think you can invest in a complete basket of them. A lot of times I use the analogy. You can go out and buy Apple, and then people say, "Hey, let me go buy the 5 suppliers." So I tell people, I say, you know what? I like Harry Winston, I like Tiffany's, but I would look at an Oraco because you know what? They take diamonds right out of the ground. I like Exxon, and there's a company that I'll talk to you in the next few weeks that's another oil play. So you can go for the big names that everybody recognizes, but the real risk to reward from a financial standpoint comes from owning the smaller companies.
The interesting thing, and you talk about Oraco, ORAC, a smaller company. If you think about a basket mentality, that's how ETFs came into favor the last 5 years. Yeah. An exchange traded fund is nothing more than a basket of stocks like a mutual fund. It just doesn't have the fees involved, and it certainly doesn't have. You're able to trade it when you want to, but there's still a group of fund managers. Once again, I want to give out the number. I want to talk about the website as well. AfricaIsTheNewChina.com is the website. You can call the number right on the top of there, 800-998-AFRICA. We've decided to jump on board because I'll be honest with you. I took a couple of hits because I wasn't in China soon enough.
Yeah.
The problem
a lot of people missed it.
Oh boy, yeah.
Well,
the dam builders. No, I didn't mean to cuss, but the guys that build the dams.
But the other side too, though, and I want to bring this up, and I talk about this every time you're here with us. I think it's important. There was a similar report
Sure.
that came out about China
Absolutely.
before China, and that came out by Goldman Sachs.
That was Lehman Brothers.
Lehman Brothers that said, "Listen, man, take a look at China," and not a lot of folks paid attention to it.
No, and a lot of people.
You saw a similar report though about Africa.
I mean, a lot of people didn't have access to those reports. They didn't know what was going to happen out of China, and,
Right.
and the information wasn't readily available.
Yeah.
This kind of information, it's available today, and it's in layman's terms. I mean, you can read it and kind of, figure out what you should do from an investment standpoint.
Doesn't China put out like a 5-year advance deal on what they're going to try to do?
The GDP, their GDP is based upon what they're projecting.
Yeah.
That's as a country, and that's been suspect. That's the
Yeah,
other issue too.
for sure.
No one's ever suspected the Western African government.
No.
China's a communist country. I mean,
No one's ever been concerned that West Africa's padding the numbers. In a communist country, they just go, "Oh well, here, go ahead and release this."
That is exactly
There's another
right.
reason.
Yeah.
Africa is the
Closer,
new China.
and they don't pad their numbers.
And and it's a resource play that you can't find anywhere else. Guys, before we take a break, pull up the website one more time. AfricaIsTheNewChina.com. 800-998-AFRICA. 800-998-2374. You see the commercials playing here on Biz Television and on CBS and Business Talk Radio Network. Will you call us next week and do an emerging markets report?
Yeah, for sure. I'll be in New York, but I'll call in.
Richard Steele. Thank you, buddy.
Wow.
I got a big secret about Richard, too. A good thing happened for the network. As soon as I talk him into it, I think.
Is that picture I saw?
No,
that's not
it's
him.
a
Okay,
whole
just
series.
I got you.
No, I think that he's the Richard Steele is the new Rusty Nails. That's the secret. Right there.
I'm glad my baking skills are in order.
Big Biz Show, BigBizShow.com.